I'm Vin.
I'm Sori.
And this is Eyeless from the band Slipknot. Look, for timely topical political commentary, you can hit us up at Middle America with Vin and Sori. If you, dear listener, would like a song reviewed yourself, there are multiple ways to make that happen. Now, you will notice with other reaction channels, and you should support them. Like, share, comment, subscribe, other reaction channels. Shout out to everybody else. Look, you will see that they'll cut up the songs every 20, 30 seconds or so. There's a very good reason they do that. They do that because when you see the little commercial at the beginning of the video, Google gets a cut from the commercial, from the ad revenue, and the creator gets a cut from the ad revenue. However, when you play the song all the way through, it alerts the record label, and the record label says, uh-huh! And then you get this nifty little message
Your creator cut gets cut.
Google.
And you don't get any.
Which is a nice way of saying, hey, thank you very much, your channel is making us tons of money, but the little pittance that you were going to get is now scooped up by the record label. So, once we figured out that that was going on, we tried little things, we tried to do the things the other channels were doing, but at that time we got we were 5,000 deep in subscribers, and people were like, no way, we like it the way it was before,
and
keep it
believe it
pure.
or not, people have their opinions.
Yeah.
And they share them. Actually.
So we just kept it the standard format and we took the hit. Well, we figured out Patreon actually is a good way to offset that. So $1 to gig gets you in at Patreon. There's multiple levels. It's a $5 tier where we're about to release the first 34 seconds of the song that our super secret band is coming up with. There's a shirt tier. There's so many things. You pull your points together and then you get your song reviewed.
Super secret band.
If you're
both in it.
Yeah, she's vocalist. I'm the pathetic guitarist, and then we actually have a real guitarist and other real musicians are in the band.
My throat is currently sore.
But if you don't want to do that and work with a community of people, you're a filthy capitalist like Soren, you're an individualist isolationist, and you want to hop, skip, and jump in front of everybody. $125 gets you straight to the head of the line. Vin and Sori merch at gmail.com on Patreon. And without further ado, this is Slipknot with Eyeless. Let's go.
All right.
From the album Slipknot, classic metal record. I can't wait for you to hear this song.
Here we go.
Son, cause he's a phantom, a mystery, and that leaves me nothing. Many times if you wanted to die, it's too late for me. All you have to do is get rid of me. You get to California with a monopenotide. Get to California with a monopenotide. You get to California with a monopenotide. It's all in your head. It's all in my head. It's all in your head. Yeah. You lied to me for so long.
on, brother minister. Oh, I forgot how good that song was. Do you wanna feel pain? Check him on 9 in vain. Carry never felt so lame inside. Anybody else got pride? Do you wanna take my life? Maybe I'll reverse my ride. Oh man, I love that line.
All right. Here's the lyrics.
Pretty sure that song is about his dad.
I would assume so.
Why? Why would you assume it's about his
Because
dad?
he said, I am my father's son, because he's a phantom, a mystery that leaves me nothing.
Oh, and that leaves me up.
What is Marlon Brando's eyes?
You can't see California without Marlon Brando's eye. I always
Marlon Brando.
Marlon Brando's a famous actor.
Oh.
Marlon Brando, he's like one of the most iconic actors of all time in Hollywood.
Oh. I was like, I wonder if it's like a serial killer.
No, Marlon Brando. Marlon Brando. You've never seen it? Like Marlon Brando's. I'm sure your mother knows who Marlon Brando is.
I'm sure
I
my
mean, look,
grandmother would have known who
there he
he
is.
was.
He's a specimen.
Is it?
I mean, he had a horrible, miserable life. I mean, one of his kids killed himself. The other one like had an OD and all that. I always took that line to mean like it's another way of saying you can't understand what it's like to be me unless you walk a mile in my shoes. Mm-hmm. So California, Hollywood. So like you can't understand Hollywood unless you see it through the eyes of Marlon Brando. I just took that as a way of saying you can't understand. I don't know if Corey was going that deep into like commenting on Marlon Brando's job as a parent because but I just thought it was a way of saying. And also I read in an interview this is way back when Slipknot first came out, that you can't see California without Marlon Brando's eyes was something like a homeless guy had said to him. Like he randomly like I don't know, like he was giving the guy food or something like that, and the guy said like you can't see California without Marlon Brando's eyes to Corey. And then that whatever.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Well, I think there's a sense in which some, that stuff is kind of true. Like, there's certain things that you don't realize unless you're actually in the situation.
Right.
Like, because we're doing this type of review, I mean, when you're looking at metal artists and in their careers and some of the lyrics that they put out, like you recognize that when they get to the top of their game, it doesn't provide the type of fulfillment that they thought it was going to. But somebody on the outside, like an aspiring artist that really, really wants to be them, is not going to understand that, is not going to be able to understand what it's like unless they were,
Yeah, and
in their situation.
And the other thing is you don't understand the exigencies of parenthood until you yourself become a parent.
Oh, absolutely.
Which I've read later on that he actually met with his father and reconciled with his father.
He did.
Corey did. And the same thing happened with Jay-Z. Jay-Z met his dad, and they kind of had a little reconciliation. Then his dad died. So it's a thing. The father wound is a what's his face? Douglas Wilson had a thing called father wounds that he was talking about, or father hunger or father wounds. I forgot what it was. He was a pastor, and he was doing this series. I never looked at it though.
Yeah,
I looked at a lot of stuff Douglas Wilson did, but that one I avoided. Marlon Brando, he did the Godfather. No,
I never saw that.
Kiss the Ring. Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
I mean, I think that, some of the stuff I feel like we spend like a lot of time with our kids, like way more than, we homeschool them, we both work from home, it's not even, but because that's the only thing that they know, that's normal to them. And so they're always wanting more, and I'm like, oh, ask any of your friends how much time their parents just hang out with them. I sat downstairs for like 2 hours just chatting with the kids and stuff like that, and then one of them was like, well, I said, I spent 2 hours down here with you guys before I started working. She's like, well, you didn't play games with us. I'm like, I'm tired, I'm pregnant, I'm tired. I'm not gonna run around playing games. You're lucky I'm sitting down there chatting. But like, I think that you're
104 minutes in total.
Of what? How much the average parent pay?
Yeah.
Is that per day?
Yeah, per day. 104 minutes. So it's like, that's not even 2 hours.
No, I know, yeah.
And that's twice as much as it was 50 years ago. Because of the work and all that stuff.
But yeah, I mean, they've got certain perspectives, but I think that, when they become adults
and then there's another one
and
that
they
says,
realize,
a family spend just 37 minutes of quality time together. 37 minutes is the average. Yeah. Go ahead. I'm sorry. What were you saying?
Yeah. So, but I think that, you know, right now they have the minds of kids, and they, you know, they have their ideas of what, you know, it should be.
Oh,
but then when they grow, it's like they're going to get some perspective when they have kids of their own.
100%.
You know.
Well, that's the big thing, is that when you're a kid, all you're looking at is your perspective. I mean, I you know, I said at the fireside last night, people, I don't think I've ever talked about my dad in this form.
Yeah, very.
You know, it's all about my mom, but you know, and the crazy thing is my dad was in a pretty horrible circumstance. Like, you know, I'm not going to get into all the details of it, but because, like I always say, like, I'm not going to dishonor my mother to honor my father, but there were things that happened that my dad, I'll just say it this way, he got a pretty broad deal, and then the narrative that I was given all my life, pretty much until I turned about 18 years old, was was just not true and incomplete, as is what happens a lot of time in divorces, you know.
Yeah.
And that's why I made certain decisions that I did for myself, as well as on your side too, because I understood what it was like to be a kid in the middle of a divorce, and when the parents are at war, the things that happen, the kids end up being the collateral damage. And so, like, my relationship with my dad is you know, I shot a video for him in a different form, and
That's really good.
Even yesterday, a couple people in my family on the Jamaican side were like friend requesting me and all that, and like even yesterday, one of them said, "Hey, I saw your tribute video," you know, but because everybody on that side of my on my dad's side, like, knew it actually happened, and so.
Oh, right.
Yeah,
right.
And you know, not to get all the details, but my dad, when I was in Jamaica with my older brother, like, he pretty much was mother and father for us, and then, you know, you'd have these, we were kind of upper middle class, so we were able to have like helpers, like a housemaid basically, and like I would say, ask her if I could call her mom and all this, and you know, I didn't understand at the time why she was all uncomfortable with that, you know what I mean? So so my dad was like double timing it, and then we were just, you know, so like, everybody that was there, like, they saw, you know, the injustice and how hard it was of what he had to deal with, and then we were just estranged from him. Like, my older brother was always like, I remember, like, when my mom got us and all this, and like, my older brother was like very emotional, he would lash out at her, and I had no clue why he was acting like that, and I never understood my older brother, because we don't talk about that stuff in our family. I talk to you guys more than I never understood why my older brother was the way that he was until with my mom in the first like 6 months to a year when we first started living with her, until, you know, my ex left, and then she like came back up to visit after leaving them, and the reception from the oldest one, who had the most time with her, was very, very icy. Yep. And then I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah. Oh, wow, it took that long?
We don't talk about that stuff in our family.
So it's not like you were sitting around like wondering why. You just didn't put any thought into it.
We never talked about it. I was just like, that's weird.
Yeah.
I'm like, I idolized my mother, obviously, so I was like, hey, but I was like, what's his problem?
Wow.
So, like, I didn't put it, there's so many things that you don't put together until you become a parent. Yeah. And when you see it. So, you know, Father's Day went by, and I really felt like God told me, like, hey, you need to, you know, not just put a little post up there, but actually, you know, talk about it, you know. So I shot a video, and it was a crazy thing how it affected, like, my dad called me up, and he was like, you know, so he was pretty happy about it, but I was blown away by all the comments under it from my family, because some of them were like, one of them said to me, like, I remember like, they basically had my dad on suicide watch for,
Oh God.
you know, and of course, now being a father myself, like, I get it. Like, if my kids were taken from me, like, especially under those circumstances, like, on his birthday, no less, like, I don't know, but like the whole community had to come around my dad and all that, and of course he and that's the thing, like, there's some things that happen where you're like, say something, because you have the goods on these people. Don't let these people talk all that shit about you. And I'm like, you know, I truly didn't care, because my thing was, the whole thing was that when you guys have no idea what we're talking about here, but like, my thing was, I had the kids. I had the kids, and I didn't care about anything else. I didn't care about any of his opinion. Like, I could care less. Like, there was so much like going on. I remember, like, when the whole divorce thing was happening, the lawyer was like, who's got custody of the kids? I'm like, I've got complete and sole and total custody of the kids. And he's like, all right, well, what are we gonna do for child support? And I'm like, I don't care about child support. I just want the kids. The guy's like, I know, but we're gonna get some child support. And I was like, no, we're not. It's like, she's barely keeping her head above water herself down wherever she is. I gotta send her money. Like, what are you talking about? I gotta get child support. The guy hung up on me. Like, he was like, so I just didn't care about anything that anybody had to say as long as I had my kids. So when we were taken away, man, they had to.
Oh my God.
They had to, like, try to give the guy more reasons to keep living and you know. But the crazy thing about my dad, he would talk to us like once or twice a year, because we moved around so much, and it wasn't like now where everybody has cell phones, so it doesn't matter where you go, your number never changes. Like, it was back in the day, you canceled phone service, you got a new phone. So we moved like 3 or 4 times, whatever, and so it was just so hard to get in contact with us. And my mom would call him on my birthday or whatever, and he would talk to us. My dad never once told us what happened. Never once. The only way I found out was through my grandmother, which was my mom's mom, and she basically said, "You're wrong, you know, Beverly." And I was like, "What are you talking about?" And my mom.
She said that in front of you guys.
Oh yeah. Well, my mom didn't get along with anybody in either side of the family. She's like me, you know. Although I get along with my brothers, but and she sat and she just told me the whole thing, and I looked at my mom. My mom was like, "Yeah, that's pretty much how it went down." And I was like, at the time, my mom and I were at war. And Junior had moved out, so Junior's my older brother. So she, you know, she was just like, you know. And my mom, like, no matter what she did, like, if she felt justified in doing it, she didn't care what you had to say or anybody had to say.
You never knew anyone like that.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's another thing I get from my mom. Like, she, you know, like, she's like, well, you know, I wanted you guys, and he wasn't gonna, you know. She basically said I wasn't gonna do the shared custody thing. And I want to live in America. We're in Jamaica, so, you know, whatever happened. And that was the first time when I actually heard what actually happened. So all those years when my dad would get the one time to call me, he never, ever said what actually happened. And he called me up. He called me up. You were like sitting next to me. And I said, you never explained what happened. He goes, well, I saw how much you idolized your mom and da-da-da-da, so, you know, I wasn't gonna, you know, like, for what? You know? And, so, you know, so even though, like, I never got to grow up with my dad, like, there's certain aspects of my dad's personality where, you know, I would do the same thing. Like, there was a particular situation with Selah where, you know, there was all this nonsense that was said about us, and then you started going, well, this is actually, and I said, no. I said, I'm not gonna.
It wasn't right. Like,
yeah.
I don't understand, like, grown adults putting children in the middle of stuff.
Yeah.
And, like, there were lies that were being said to her about the people that she loves and cares about, especially you.
Yeah.
And, like, I wanted her to know, like, that's not true.
Yeah.
But I brought her into you.
Yeah, and
I said,
I said, damn, sweetheart, that's tough.
But the way that you handled the situation, like when she was talking to me about it, I could see there was a lot of stress in her face.
Yeah.
And I had no clue how to handle the situation. I brought her in here, and then you talked it through, and she looked like she felt much better and closer to you after and everything. And I was
yeah, and you know, well, initially you were like, what the hell? And I said, I'm not going to, you know, do that to her. I'm not, even if it's the truth, I'm not going to like destroy her father to defend myself. I'm not doing that. Like, the other thing is, I'm like, she's a smart girl. She'll be able to piece it together one way or another. But I'm not going to do that to her. Like, she's a kid. She should have some area where she's able to do this without getting tossed like a tennis ball back and forth. And you were really good about it, because you were like, okay, that's true. And then, like, she was saying she was upset at me and blah, blah, blah. And then, like, 20 minutes later, she asked me to give her a hug or whatever, or good night or all that. And she was pretty clingy a couple days after that. So... But my point in saying that is to say that I got from my dad, even though, you know, I didn't consciously say, oh, my dad would do this, but I, you know, that sort of spirit was passed on my dad's side, because that's not my mom. My mom would have been like, oh yeah? Here's all the texts from your worthless father. Shout out to my mother. Shout out to my mother. But that's not the part I got. I didn't get that from my mother. I got that from my dad.
The
so
thing
shout out
is
to
too, like, he didn't say anything when you were a kid, which, like, you can see where he was coming from. But he didn't say anything when you were an adult either. He let you.
Yeah.
Like, I don't.
Yeah. And he's like, again, he was like, you know, I'm not going to, because the other thing is, like, I'm still his kid. So even though I'm an adult, he knows how highly I regard my mother. But I said in my video to my dad, I'm like, you know, I'm not gonna, you know, I basically said I understood what happened. I didn't go into detail about what happened, but the people that needed to know, I mean, the people that knew, and I was just really like, I was blown away by how much it affected him and how much it just the entire family, like, they've all been waiting, especially with me, because my older brother and him were always kind of like cool, and my older brother had a little bit more time with him, and so, you know, when he moved to New York, my older brother was like, they were, you know, but I was always the, you know, so it was like everybody was waiting for it to happen, and so like. Yeah, even up to last night, I was getting friend requests from these people. I'm like, who are these people? And then they messaged me, and it's like, I was like, oh, you know, that's cool. And like, we don't talk anymore. They just wanted to be able to say, man, thank you for saying that. So anyway, the point of the song is like, it's just crazy growing up with these guys. Slipknot, having that father wound. Jay-Z, all these people that have these father wounds, and then you see them get older. It happened with Jay-Z. He met his dad, they reconciled. It happened with, you know, Corey, and like, it's part of growing up is that sort of distance from your parents, and then now Corey's got a kid of his own, and he's out there touring X times a year, and you see your kid 2 or 3 months out of the year. You're always leaving your kid, you know, like. I'm sure there's some of that happening, you know, and, you know, Jonathan Davis talked about it with his dad, you know, like, so, and now he's out there touring and all that. You know, he was talking about, I think the name of the song was Seed, and he was like explaining, like, it's kind of a full circle type of thing, you know, because Jonathan's dad was a musician too. I mean, he was a small time musician and stuff. So
the only time I've ever seen Vin with his dad, like, I saw you with your brother, who's a lot taller than you, and really, he doesn't even look like you.
Who, Jamie?
Yeah, I don't even really see any similarities between the two of you. Sometimes I try to search for it in both your faces, and I'm not really seeing it. But then when I saw you by your dad, it was so unbelievable.
When did you see me by my dad?
Well, it was a sad event.
You were. Oh yeah.
So you go to your dad, and you guys are like the same height, basically, and like just like facial structure and everything. It was I have always found that to be wildly entertaining to see, like, the similarities between children and their parents.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know why it's so funny to me, but it is. So when I saw him. Actually, I was still in my past relationship. I pointed I said to my husband at the time, I said, look how much he looks like his father. Anyway, I think that's great.
Yeah.
I was very glad he called, and I don't know, just happy to hear you guys talking. I left you guys to talk.
Yeah, it was a good discussion. So there you go. There's Slipknot. I just love this song. Like, Slipknot, like, look, man, look. This is one of those records where it's kind of like the first Korn record. There's never going to be a record like this ever again. Mm-hmm. And people are like, oh, this next one is going to be heavier. Io was heavier than the... Mm-hmm. Sure. But like the just the raw emotion in Corey's voice, Ross Robinson did such an amazing job, like pulling that out of him. There's never gonna be another record like this. It was just like the most raw, unbridled rage. Whereas the first Korn record was like raw, unbridled vulnerability, and sometimes there was a lot more range, I think, in the first Korn record. First Slipknot record, it was just plain old, just raw, like seething, like I'm gonna strangle you to death type stuff. And this is not, it's not the same thing. And that's okay. I'm glad that they can never make another record like this, because he's not in that same place, and I'm happy for him. You know, like a record that I would write, the stuff that I was writing when I was in high school, I can never write now. I mean, I'm obviously a better writer now, but I'm not as angry, and I thank God for that. Good Lord, at some point you gotta get healed from stuff. But anyway, what do you give it?
9.8.
It's a 10 for me, for obvious reasons. Shout out to Keith Patrick, appreciate you, my guy. And with that, I bid you adieu. Vin out.
Sori out.
Gone.